Welcome to Session Sunday. Hi guys, it's Jack Edwards, and today's session is going to be focusing on pressing to then counter-attack and score. But before we get into this week's video, make sure to leave us a like and subscribe, and if you missed last week's video, click on the link above. Okay, so moving into the first part of this week's session, we're going to be focusing on pressing the ball when we're starting off overloaded, okay, and then we're going to get bodies round the ball to then transition and score. But before we get into it, let's have a look at how many players we're working with this week and the equipment that we'll be using. So in terms of players, okay, we're going to have 13 players, including our goalkeeper. So 12 outfield players and a keeper. If you don't have a keeper, as we've mentioned previously, obviously a coach or a volunteer or a parent, if you're working with younger players, could go in goal, or the alternative to that is to use smaller sided goals and end zones. If you have more players, that's fine. You're just going to divide them into two even groups. So let's say you had an extra 2 players, one more player each side. You could have, the way we have the one green in here, you can have an extra one in there. And in terms of the blues, you could just have an extra person pressing in one of the squares. So in terms of the setup for this part of the session, okay, we're going to be going from the goal line here to these boxes. We're going to go 30 yards. So we're going to be transitioning 30 yards from goal. And then the boxes can be 10 yards, 10 yards further in depth, or you can go a little bit bigger if you want to, depending on how many players that you've got. In terms of the width, so again, these can either be 10 or 15, however you want them to be, and then you're looking for 20 yards centrally in here. Okay, so it's either going to be 40, or it can be a little bit more to 15, depending on how you want to increase it. So in terms of the equipment, we're going to be using balls, bibs, cones, okay, and then for further on, if you don't want to use end zones and stuff, you want to use small-sided goals, then you can look to use poles as an alternative for them instead. So for the first part of this session, we're going to be focusing on the blues. Okay, so the greens are looking to keep possession, switch and play. Okay, so the blues are going to have 2 players, okay, in each box. So it's kind of like a rondo and 2 players centrally. Okay, so we're kind of using wide players here, wide midfielders, the holding midfielder and the striker. The greens will have a 3 and a 3, but 1 player comes into this zone here when the ball switches play to provide the option to then switch the play back out. So the coach will play into here. What these players are looking to do is retain the ball, okay, so prevent these 2 players in the middle getting it. Once all 3 players have touched the ball, this player can then get involved, which then entices this player to come in, which makes it a 4v4, but we can get an overload on this side. So this player aims to return quickly and receive. So what we're trying to do is prevent passes into this player, and then when they do receive it, okay, it's kind of giving them that false sense of hope that they're going to be able to turn and play. Because as they receive it, we're either trying to intercept it, or obviously screen passes into one of these players, okay, and then can we force them to try and play through. Or once this player receives the ball, pressing as a 2, pinching it and going and score. So once we win the ball back, the team who is defending, so in the box, become attackers, and the 2 players outside, okay? And in terms of defenders, you're looking for these 2 players to recover here, okay? And we're looking for the midfield players, so we're going to have a 4v3. You can then develop that if you wanted to another player coming in and recovering, but we're trying to obviously make it realistic, so that transition is going to be quick, so the 3 players who are more central, okay, are going to come in to try and win that ball. But like I say, it depends on whoever you want to go in and defend that. So as soon as we win the ball back, the blues, okay, where can we get bodies? Okay, we want to be attacking forwards, we want to counter attack. Can we look to go forward quickly? Okay, so we've secured the ball. Can we look to go forward? Are we going to drive into space? Drive directly at the goal. Okay, can we get our options off the ball, so it's not even just to receive it, just to make the defenders think about someone. So this defender's then getting occupied by this player. This player's got the ball. This player's got 2 players to worry about. Okay, so can the player make a running behind? Maybe take this player away. Can this player make a running behind where we can receive it and then look to score? So it's all about that first thought on transition. Can we go and score? Okay, can we look to attack the goal quickly? Okay, securing the ball, but obviously being creative, improvising, so where the ball is, where our teammates are, in terms of, and then when we don't have the ball, covering that ground quickly, okay, having that urgency, okay, that determination to win the ball back, okay. If they do switch the play, can we react to get over. So then this player will come back over. You might have a player moving to this gap here. This player comes over. You kind of want them to have it like this. So then the other green player comes across. They're looking to keep the ball. Okay, once they've all touched it, can we press in? Okay, so we're setting a trap for them. So that as they do try and play across, bang, we can go and attack. This player makes a run. We've got to react quickly before the other team does. We get those height, width and depth. We play in. Players making runs across. Players making runs in behind. So we're getting that support, and then we're looking to go in and score. So that transition from kind of like the middle into the final third to score. We will now move into our first animation before moving on to part 2 of this week's session. Now moving into part 2 of this week's session. Okay, we're now focusing on pressing to force the overload, and then again, attack century, and then look to score. Okay, so in terms of the setup for this part of the session, it all just depends on how many players that you've got really, and what space you've got. So kind of ideally, we're looking for, it's going to be around 65 yards a total depth. Okay, but it can be increased or decreased depending on how many players you've got and the age group that you're working with. But obviously, kind of working with older players, looking to have a lot of space. We're going at 25 yards in here, okay, 10 yards in here, another 25 yards, and then 5 yards for the end zone. You might not have an end zone, you might have small-sided goals, okay. You might look to decrease this area, so there's less room to travel, okay. All just depends on what you want to use. And again, same with the width, okay, you can either go 30 or 40 yards, which would then split this into here into two 15-yard areas. I'd probably say start with 30, and then you can go to 40 as it progresses, if it maybe becomes too easy or there's not enough space, however you see fit. So, in terms of the setup, in terms of like where we're having our players, so this is going to be focusing on, as if we've got like 2 defenders high up the pitch, okay, on the ball. So the ball will start with the goalkeeper, or it can start with the coach, get played into the 2 centre-backs, okay. So we have our striker actively looking to press the centre-backs or pressurise, okay, looking to pressure, to force passes into certain areas. Then in this area here, we have our 5 players backing it up. So this is kind of like our wingers. So when the centre-backs get the ball, can they provide pressure again? Not actively looking to press the ball carrier, okay, but provide pressure where it's stopping them playing to certain players. And then we have our 3 midfielders in behind, okay. So in terms of the greens here, they could look to get their height, their width, their depth. So they're going to be overloaded in here. So their thought process is play through into an area where they can get it into space, either drive into the end zone or play into the play somebody into the end zone. So you could do that with small-sided goals if you want to, depending on based on how you wanted it to work. So in terms of the Blues, it's staying connected, okay? It's covering that ground quickly, staying compact, and then when we win the ball back, going attacking quickly. Okay, so we've got to show that, you know, the aggression, the determination, the urgency to win the ball, a willingness to win it. So when it comes into these areas, okay, can we look to get bodies round the ball, force them into areas where that we block off certain areas of the pitch. So this player's coming this way, so then can we get players round the ball? Can we cut the passing lanes? And then eventually, can we look to win that ball back on transition, secure the ball and attack forward? Okay, but looking to go forward and quickly, okay? Striker, okay, can you look to running behind? Wider players, can you provide the width? Can you get in behind as well? Support runs from midfield, okay? So can you break the lines and get into here? Because we've got that overload, because these players are going to be a bit further up the pitch. There's going to be a player out on the other side. There's going to be a player further deep. Can we get some protection as well in case we lose the ball? In terms of our holding midfielders sitting, then maybe one midfielder might not push up as high. Okay, so we want 4 players, always 4 players attacking. Okay, and then it just depends where the opposition is. Minimum of 4 every time. Okay, so these 2 centre-backs are going to recover centrally inside the pitch. Then midfielders are going to look to get themselves back. So our thought process is attack quickly, okay, at speed, get bodies up the pitch, get our support runs, and as we get closer to the goal, okay, our improvisation, our creativity in terms of where's our runs going to be, where can we score. So it could literally be as simple as we win the ball back, okay? And as soon as we win the ball back, it's one ball through and we score. Perfect counter-attack, okay? So we're looking to do it in as little passes, okay, in as little movements as we can. If it's a dribble, it's fine. We drive quickly and we drive, again, forward up the pitch. We don't want to be going into the wide areas. Can we attack centrally first? So it could be that, you know, the ball gets played into here, gets played out, and then we might have some movements here from the greens. As this player comes in, okay, cut off the passes, okay, force them back, they might look to turn, win the ball, strikers in straight away, okay. Centre-backs are split, okay, he's obviously been marking one. Can he get that inside run? We play into the striker, these players recover, get support runs, we move up the pitch, okay, we close that gap. Obviously, the greens are going to try and recover, but can we then look to score before they get back in? Okay, so it's all doing at a really high intensity. Okay, so we're pressing in those right areas. We're shifting across when the centre-back's got the ball. We're preventing the other centre-back getting the ball easy, so we're trying to force them into these congested areas to win the ball. Once we win it, that light switch, okay, can we go and score quickly? Okay, limit the passes, limit how long we're on the ball. Okay, we're trying to attack that space quickly. So that's the main thing to say to players. Attack the space, okay, and then our support runs. We will now move into our second animation before moving on to the final part of this week's session. Okay, so moving into the final part of this week's session, we're going to be looking at a drill which is focusing on trying to press high, okay, but with the compactness of midfield in behind. So if the ball goes into that midfield area, we can also press in there as well to prevent balls going through. So in terms of the setup for this part of the session, okay, in this final third here, okay, we're going to have 25 yards. In the middle third, we're going to have 20 yards. And then in these last two areas here, okay, so you can either just have one area where this player can just receive the ball, or you can have two, okay? But what I done instead was have two areas so that the midfielders can look to push into these areas. So when the ball comes into here, you could have a midfielder moving in behind, okay? So that can just be 10 or 15 yards plus an extra 5 there. So you can just have one 10 or 15 yard area. This player can be in there to receive it and they score. Or you can have them in this area here instead, and then players trying to make runs in behind the midfield. However you see fit, okay? So it's either you're gonna have 25, 20, okay? And then you're looking for 10 or 15 from there. It could be 15 yards total there, just 10 there and 5, or you can just have 10 yards in there, however you see fit. And then with the width as well, if we're going 30 yards, okay, but it can again be increased to 35, 40, depending on how many players you have, the bigger the area you want it to be. So for the Blues, they're gonna have the front three, okay, and the three midfielders in behind. So you've got the overloading here, but we're looking for the goalkeeper to be confident with the feet. So they're looking to actively press the ball, but they're also looking to prevent balls through into this area, okay? So then when the ball does go into this area, we can centre and press, okay, because we're kind of man for man in here. This is why we're trying to retain that compactness, okay, and win the ball higher up the pitch. So when the ball gets played out to one of the centre-backs, okay, we're looking for obviously the winger to press on an angle to prevent this player getting the ball. We're looking for the centre forward to press to prevent forward passes, but also put the centre back under pressure. And then we're looking for this winger to then prevent passes through. Okay, so all it would take if this player is too wide is to open out and play through. So we're looking to narrow off inside the pitch, okay? And we're forcing them across that other centre back. So when that centre back then gets the ball, this player comes out, the striker comes across, okay, so it might be at first that they drop in, okay, they won't be able to press high, can they drop in, and then can we get that other support, that balance from the left-sided player. Whilst this is happening, we're obviously going to be looking for our midfielders to step up, okay, so when we're pressing, okay, the other players are screening, are these players going to lock on, okay, but in terms of locking on, when this player gets the ball here, can we do both? Okay, so then if this player then gets the ball, we can lock on there, okay, and prevent them coming out this way. Whereas if we just went man for man, we've got no protection in behind, okay? So we're trying to prevent the passes. So until we can see that ball coming into midfield area, okay, can the players in here, so this player can screen or lock onto this player, so they can lock onto here, or they can look to screen by then, if the ball comes into this player, excuse me, they've then got the opportunity to press in there and get the support, okay, so it's sensing the danger, but also sensing the position of the ball into the players. So then if the ball got switched in here, this player might come out. Can we screen that pass? Okay, this player's kind of doing two roles. This player's got that option to step in instead of just, we're all going man for man, okay? We leave that space in behind as well, because these players are able to play through, okay, but we're not looking for them to play over, okay, because then obviously it becomes too easy. They could just be open out and play over. They can play through that one, okay, but they can't play over. So that whole midfielder looks to provide the protection, okay, but can also support in these areas as well. So if we can't win the ball in here, we're still screening those passes, okay? So then if we screen it and the player looks to play through in here, okay, that's when we can lock on. That's when we can get our support, okay? Because for then this player to turn and play this player into here, okay, it's going to be difficult for them. So we're looking to lock on, okay? These players are providing support as well. Can we look to pinch the ball and then go and attack in that overload? Play just becomes live as soon as the players win the ball back in here. So this way we're saying as a progression, you can look for these players to move into this area here if you wanted to, okay? Or this player can drop in. That's what we're looking for, okay? For the player to maybe spinning behind, and that then gives us that option to think about what's behind us as well. So again, as soon as we win that ball, support runs, attack the goal quickly, okay? So attacking in these areas, okay? If we can go solo, okay, and just get support runs, perfect, okay? If the defender presses in, okay, where can our support run be in here? Okay, we give us that width, that outside option, okay? Can we get a running behind as well? So we're trying to give ourselves that 25 or plus yards in this area to be able to attack some space as well, but we don't want it to be too far because we're trying to win that ball and play into the final third, okay? So for the Greens, keeping that ball, okay, looking to probe, to play through. For us, it's retaining those positions, okay? They might play with a 2 in here and a 1, okay, which this means that player that can then screen and lock, okay? Whereas if this player plays high with 2 wide midfielders, these 2 players have got the job of, if the ball is coming in here, okay, can they do a job of screening passes into both player? But again, the importance of the positioning of that front three. So we've got the player pressing, got the second player backing it up, and then we've got that balance across preventing those passes through. So it's a bit more in terms of we're forcing the opposition into areas where we think we can win the ball, okay, and not just going gung-ho straight away, waiting for the right triggers. We will now move into our final animation before concluding this week's session. Thanks for watching this week's video. Don't forget to head over to our website where you can sign up to view all of our exclusive content. And we'll see you next week for another Session Sunday.